Welcome back, everyone, to the next session at CDAO Insurance. And what a session we have in store. This is a panel made up of chief data officers, and they'll be focusing on understanding the why when developing your data and analytics strategy. As normal, you can submit your questions at any time during the session, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. Moderating this panel is Harbert Bernard, Global Value Consultant Lead at Profisee. I'll invite Harbert and the panelists now to come on video and off mute as we kick off the session. I can see that they're now doing that. So over to you, Harbert.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here. We do have a fabulous panel today, and we're going to talk about data and analytics and what that means for the organization and how we can deliver real sustainable business value. We'll first have an introduction from each of the panelists. I think we'll start with Don Vu first. If you can give us a little background on how you got into data and analytics and what it means for you and your organization. And after the introductions, we'll go into the questions, the meat of this webinar. York?
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, and thanks for having me this morning. My name is Don Vu, and I'm the Chief Data Officer at Northwestern Mutual. I guess my journey in data really began in 6th grade when my parents took me to computer camp, or put me in computer camp. I recall programming little turtles on the ground, like drawing lines and logo. That ultimately led to me just being really into computers, and ultimately my first job in New York City at a startup that built startups. I was a data engineer, and one of the startups we built was MLB Advanced Media, the digital arm of Major League Baseball. That led to a 13-year career being a founding member of their customer data analytics team, working on kind of like the money ball for business at baseball, which was a great time. After that, I ended up at WeWork as the VP of Central Data Analytics, which was certainly an interesting and unique ride. And now I'm at Northwestern Mutual for about a year as Chief Data Officer, and it's been great all along the way.
Thank you. Next panelist.
Hi, Louis DiMaduno here. I'm a retired Air Force colonel, and so I've been dealing with data for a real long time. And a number of years ago, I went ahead and came over to the commercial side of the world, primarily in a consulting manner, joined PwC, worked with the insurance arm there in building out target operating models and technology architecture. And most recently, I was the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at AXA at the Life and Annuity Organization in New York City. And for the last 4 years, I've been with HSB, which formerly known as Hartford Steam Boiler, which is a division of Munich Re.
And finally, York.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is York Einhaus. I'm the Chief Data Officer of Farmers Insurance Group. I've been in this role for about 18 months. I've been in insurance for probably over 15 years. Started back in Europe for Allianz, which is a big German insurance company, then Zurich, and came to Farmers about a couple years ago, almost 10 years now. I did not start in data. I actually started on the business side as a business process re-engineer and project manager. Been in insurance all my life. Switched over to IT and am now responsible for the data organization.
Fabulous, thank you. Now we're going to get into our first question, and let's start with that. What has the impact of COVID been for you? And we'll follow that up with how are the business drivers dictating what you should be focusing on? So let's first start talking about COVID. Anyone who wants to start can start.
Maybe I'll kick things off. So I mean, I think it's like most people, COVID changed our world in just ways we never really imagined. Here at Northwestern Mutual, we certainly saw it as an accelerant for our customer experience-led strategy. So we were already really heavily invested in creating a robust digital experience that enhanced and just deepened the relationships between our clients and our advisors. And we have an accelerated underwriting program that leverages machine learning to underwrite policies that already had traction. And we saw just really the adoption of our digital products and also the usage of accelerated underwriting just incredibly accelerate. part of it out of necessity and part of it just out of like the convenience of those tools. So we've certainly heard the market validation of those, and we're really doubling down on our efforts in both of those two areas specifically, and are really focused on driving underwriting, automation, and innovation even further this year. So it was in many ways just an acceleration and a validation for us. So.
Okay, York or Lewis?
Yeah, I think it changed our world in two ways. One is internally. Obviously, we had to send thousands of people to work from home immediately, and we realized how important technology is to make that happen, and also, you know, to show that the company cares about their employees and make sure that they can be productive from home and help them out with different capabilities that we can offer them. Obviously, it took a lot longer than we thought, so that's become the new normal. We're basically not working from home, but we're living at work, I would say. And on the other side, regarding our customers and the agents that we support, I think we realized that, just like Don said, we have to make sure that we can enable a digital world and that the customer gets what they need whenever and wherever they need it. And so it's also been an accelerator to focus on our digital journey.
And I just add a comment, you know, as a global company, HSB, you know, we've taken advantage of our capabilities across the globe and been able to, again, continue to utilize resources as necessary from a distributed standpoint. So we didn't miss a beat in that regard. But where we did have challenges is in that customer-facing role. So we have engineers all over the world that are out dealing directly with our customers and making visits and doing inspections. And so to be able to continue to give that level of service, we had to figure out new virtual ways of being able to make that happen and do it quickly. So it was challenging in that regard, and again, it drove our digital adoption in a couple of areas. Unfortunately, you know, we also have a large presence with some of our implementation partners over in India, and so most recently we have had some very extended efforts associated with the teams over there and some of the challenges that they've been going through. And that's really put a you know, challenge in some of our projects and some of our efforts. But our thoughts are always with them, and hopefully things will get better over there soon. But yeah, COVID has definitely made challenges in some areas, and other areas we've been fortunate where we haven't missed a beat.
Great. So now, what are some of the business drivers behind the data and analytics programs, and how's the business engaging with you to focus on those business drivers and deliver value?
I'll go ahead and start. You know, where we have started with just about each one of our data efforts has been around a business use case. And so we've really looked for where are the opportunities, where are the benefits associated with bringing this data together, what kind of contributions can we create from a value standpoint with the data, either through a modeling effort or just through business insight. The challenges have always come from that business side, as they need to understand better decision-making capabilities. And so they've reached out to the data organization, or we've been there to be able to create new views and visualizations for them to be able to get better insight into their data. That's really been you know, the emphasis for us from the start. It's very hard to start from the other end of creating that data lake and then finding someone that wants to use it. So again, we're very focused on use cases and really focused on what those monitored values are going to be associated with delivering.
Okay, York or Don?
Well, I think we have you know, some clear business strategy targets or, you know, initiatives that we're supporting, and it always ties back to the business strategy. Just like Lewis said, we have to make sure that everything we do supports the business strategy and delivers business value. I would say the focus areas for us are around promoting growth, improving the agent and the customer experience. At the same time, I think more internally focused, we have sort of three things that we want to look at. One is awareness and getting the data community to understand the value of data in their day-to-day life, but also from a technical perspective, trying to simplify and future-proof our landscape, getting rid of legacy, dealing with sins of the past. And the fourth one, due to the constantly changing regulations, we have to make sure that we have a solid and firm data governance model in place that protects the data that we have, because data is not only our biggest asset, but it's also one of our biggest liabilities. So we have to make sure that we have a good structure there in place. So growth, agent and customer experience, the awareness and the data community, simplifying and future-proof our technology, and then data governance, of course.
Okay, Don.
Yeah, no, echoing a lot of what my buddies Lewis and York have been sharing too. Like, we are very business strategy led. We had the good fortune when we were collaborating as an entire enterprise about our overall enterprise business multi-year strategy. Data was a partner with a seat at the table to better understand what those dependencies were from a data perspective, what data and what technology we needed to enable that business strategy. So similar to what Lewis and York were saying, we're looking for those business use cases. What's the actual challenge we're trying to solve? And then partnering on the art of the possible. That also means a little bit of like data literacy. We started getting that realm, like educating our business users and even our own data teams on how we can solve business problems using data and collaborating on that. And I really appreciated what York was saying about data governance. I think, to me, oftentimes data governance is almost characterized as a defensive move. In many ways, we view it as a paved road. Like, we want to work and collaborate with our chief privacy officer and our friends in compliance and risk to put the appropriate controls and data management in place, such that when we want to activate that data, it's done in a way that complies with all laws and privacy obligations that we want to ensure that we're adhering to. But we're able to, again, facilitate and be an accelerant in the paved road for business activation because we have all those controls in place. So definitely, our data strategy is business strategy led. In many ways, they're one and the same.
Fabulous. And I think it's a good analogy that data can be an asset and a liability and all the things that means, which takes us to our next question. How are you modernizing data capabilities while dealing with data quality and legacy and third-party data? We're talking about future-proofing and data governance. Can you go in details about your modernizing and what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. We have a couple of initiatives that are focused on the one hand to unlock certain capabilities that you can get, for example, by going to the cloud and connecting data and creating insights a lot faster. But at the same time, we're using those opportunities to modernize. We call this strategies cloud smart, so not necessarily cloud first, but everywhere where it makes sense and where we know that we will get not only be able to lower our run costs or get safer technology that protects our assets, but also at the same time unlocking certain business capabilities that will help drive our strategy. So cloud capabilities are, I think, very big and everyone's talking about it. I think there's a lot you can unlock, but you have to pick and choose which ones really support the business strategy and the timing of that. So we work very closely with our enterprise architecture team and the data architects to create that roadmap and make sure that we get rid of the legacy over time where we have a positive business case, and at the same time free up funds to invest in new technology that will set us up for the future.
Okay, Lewis or Don, talking about modernizing data capabilities.
Yeah, I would say that, the cloud is, the buzzword that everyone is talking about, and hopefully most organizations are starting to utilize that. I would say the challenge, one of the bigger challenges that we're going to see, and if you aren't experiencing this already, I can almost guarantee you that you will, is cloud interoperability. And so now everyone is starting to move towards having their own service, software as a service cloud offering. And so now the challenge is how do you get all these things to work together? So, you may have your Azure platform or your AWS platform as your backbone, but now as you're dealing with different software providers, especially the big ones, they'd love to get your data into their environment and then keep it there. But you're going to continue to find new opportunities and new capabilities out there, new vendors coming along that you're going to want to have to be able to have these cloud organizations, these cloud environments speak to each other. And that really is becoming a challenge of how the architecture on that is going to work and how we're going to be able to do that. And quite frankly, back to the original issue around security and privacy, across this interoperability becomes an even greater challenge. And so, it's definitely something that's on the horizon if it's not already on your doorstep, but an area that needs to be considered, especially as you're looking at your legacy systems and thinking about moving forward.
Fabulous. Don?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's interesting you're touching on this. We have three pillars of our data strategy. One is being very tightly aligned with the business, and another one is modernizing our data platforms. And so we're hitting on two of them out of the three. We feel like this is just really core to our ability to actually execute and deliver value. I mean, I think certainly being in an environment where we have both legacy and more modern ones, we find the greater agility, certainly with our more modern stack. So we have a very intentional effort to create what we call our unified data platform, which is our aggregation of data from throughout the enterprise and activating it in a more consolidated way. But we also do have to be mindful of deprecating those legacy systems, I think, as York had mentioned. So we have dedicated budget and work stream in order to be very intentional about migrating that over. But we have found that other folks who have attempted to build newer platforms in the past haven't really finished the swing on the deprecation, and it's just led to challenges with a far more bit of a potpourri sort of environment. So we feel like without some intention and dedicated budget and work streams dedicated to doing that deprecation, we're going to be just kind of dragged down even with newer platforms. So I would just advocate for carving out that capacity to not only build new stuff, but also migrate from older technologies onto the new ones and shutting some older things off. So.
Good. And just a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions, and we hope you do, please submit them via the Q&A link at the bottom of the Zoom ribbon. And we'll go to our next question is, how do you feature new technologies in your data management roadmap? And we talked a little bit about legacy, and be curious about your opinion on the old mainframe systems and things like that. So how do you feature new technologies in your data management roadmap? Anyone can start.
Maybe I'll just start because I think it builds on what I just described. To me, it really is like a synergy in an ideal world if your roadmap combines both the building of the new alongside like the maintenance, enhancement, and in some cases deprecation of the older ones. But I think the two of them have to go hand in hand. It's unfortunately, we don't live in kind of like a startup world where you have a clean sheet. You have to manage both the older and the new side by side. So at least that's the way we see it.
We just go back up for a little second. Someone wanted to ask about your third pillar of your strategy, Don.
Oh, it's just, for us, it's customer centricity. So I would say that being customer centric, we engaged with clients of Northwestern Mutual in so many different ways, whether it's with risk products or our investment products. And so having a holistic understanding of how our clients are engaging with NM is critically important. So our three pillars are really modernizing our data platforms and capabilities, ensuring that we have a very tight alignment with our business strategy and our data strategy. And the third is being customer centric in everything we do.
Fabulous. So continuing on the featuring new technologies in your data management roadmap, who's next?
Yeah, I'll chime in. Again, I think, some of the challenges is that, to the earlier questions, we've got legacy systems. We've all got legacy systems. In some instances, you probably still have mainframe systems, and just finding folks that can still do COBOL is a challenge to to try to extract some of this information. But the challenge, that we've found is that you're not going to go ahead and you're going to get all that data into your new environment overnight. You're going to have to go ahead and stage it and go ahead and have phases and plans to move it across. And so while you're optimizing one area, you still need to essentially keep the lights on in the other areas. And so having some sort of leapfrog, or, in our case, what we've looked at is virtualization opportunities to be able to connect data into our new environment and get access to data as necessary to bring it forward and be able to utilize it with some of the new tools. I would also say, the visualization component is always an area that, again, is that shiny rock that everyone kind of goes towards, especially on your business side. They see new opportunities as far as how you can display your data or how you can look into it and gain insights, and that really attracts them and tends to take more of the budget than may be necessary. But trying to come up with a strategy, as both of my compatriots have mentioned, and have that roadmap around what it is that you're going to gear towards, what decisions are going to be made, how you're going to go ahead and standardize on some of these technologies going forward. You essentially have to put a line in the sand at some point and say, this is what the decision we're making today, and we're going to ride this horse for, X amount of years in order to get the benefit out of it, and realize from your investment. The challenge is staying on that horse, right? Because there's new opportunities, there's new applications coming out every single day. So, make the choices that you can with the information that you have at the time, and try to stay on that horse and move forward. It's tough with all new technologies coming out all the time, but again, if you've got a real strong team and you rally around some of the capabilities, I think you'll find, some core competencies and core capabilities that the organization can take advantage of.
Perfect. And finally, York.
Well, I think Lewis and Don have mentioned a lot of it. I'm not going to repeat it, but I think for us, the key is really the positive business case. We work with the business together to justify the investments we need to make, and hopefully, create the benefits that we calculate that we will get out of it. So the legacy systems are there, and we live with them, and we obviously are well aware of some of the quality issues we might have with it, or some of the limitations we might have with it. But there is a lot of technology out there that helps us at least get faster at what we do and create insights faster. That in the end is the value that we get out of it. Regardless if it's old technology or new, we try to focus on what can we do with it and what can we give the business to make better educated decisions. And as we do that, we use every occasion to basically leverage new technology and replace the old where it's worth it. And that's why we call it, sort of cloud smart, because when we do that, we know that there's a positive business case behind it.
Are there any technologies, not names of companies, but technologies that are really interesting for y'all that are moving you forward on your data and governance and your dish reporting? Data lakes, I think Lewis is talking about virtualization.
For us, the virtualization component has been instrumental because, again, it gives us an opportunity to bring together data that doesn't have to go through the entire factory. So, our efforts have been around master data management. And so we're really about trying to find that one version of the truth, or that one vision of a customer, or their location, or the objects that they're insuring. But we want to be able to see that across a number of different products and a number of different dimensions. And so mastering is a big piece of it, but that's a very heavy effort to get your data through a mastering effort. We've got tens of rules that you've got to pass through in order to get to a final gold data set. And so to circumvent that, virtualization has been a speed to insight effort that allows us to bring data in essentially the side door of the factory and augment it into there to give us some additional insight and additional value.
Okay, Don or York, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of generally high-level concepts and technologies that you're thinking about?
Sure. I mean, first off, I'm definitely have to ping Lewis afterwards. I'm curious to hear more about virtualization, particularly side by side with maybe the older school, aggregation techniques. So looking forward to learning more from him about that. I mean, for us, I guess a lot of our focus has been on, and I mentioned before, our unified data platform and aggregating data in one place, but maybe I'll pivot a little bit and chat a little bit about like machine learning and data science. I'm just like always amazed at how things have progressed so much. Like dating myself a little bit, I recall installing, Oracle 8i on big EC2 servers, Solaris, that were like massive. And now here we are with like just incredible capabilities with Python and machine learning and like computer vision. And it's just really unlocked so many capabilities that will facilitate automation of our business processes. That really just amazes me to no end, how we're going to be able to be incredibly far more efficient than we've been and ultimately lead to a better customer experience by making it more seamless for them. So I'll throw a vote in the ring for all things machine learning, data science, but specifically things like computer vision. So.
In York.
Yeah, I think, again, a lot has been said, but we obviously try to explore what's out there. We obviously all know about AI and machine learning and the cloud and those technologies that we try to leverage on a small scale just as much as on a large scale. But I think key for us is to stay connected with the outside world and other industries to see what technologies are up and coming, and if there are any interesting POCs or pilots that we can do to explore. It's so fast paced that there's always something new that you can look at. A couple of years ago, everybody was talking about blockchain and AI and machine learning. Things come and go, and we try to stay connected with the startups and the industry to see what is out there and can we use it in a way that helps our customers or our employees in doing their job and creating the insights we want to give them.
Good.
I would just add one other thing. Don had touched upon it, but we've had the opportunity of working with a couple of vendors that are essentially exploring what I would call intelligent business intelligence. And so, it's one thing to go ahead and have reports that are spit out to you periodically, but it's another thing for you to be able to essentially use a natural language processing type query where, you use a Google type search bar, type in your question. Not only does your answer come back recognized through the natural language processing, but then it also gives you the follow-on of, did you know? And we've seen this with a couple of vendors now. And again, this AI or machine learning concept associated with the BI space is really starting to mature, and we're seeing more and more vendors in this area. It's really starting to, again, I mentioned it earlier, it's one of those shiny rocks out there that when somebody sees it happen the first time, they really are blown away. And so again, new technologies applied to old reporting gives us essentially intelligent business intelligence, and it's coming, and I can see it really impacting a lot of organizations about how we distribute our data out to our business users. Makes it a lot easier for them to get the answers they need.
Yeah, maybe even just to build on that, I think it's a great call out, Lewis, is that it's been cool to see the evolution of call it like business intelligence or BI or data visualization from just the descriptive aspect, but baking in the diagnostic aspect, almost the why behind the data. And no one's perfect at it, but it's been neat to see some initial experiments and some of which have, I've seen some decent promise and some solutions, but it's cool to watch that whole space evolve. +1 on that one.
How important is data quality and data governance to these kind of the intelligent BI type things you're talking about? kind of garbage in, garbage out. So can you talk a little bit about data governance and data quality?
I mean, you summed it up, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And like, I think if you don't trust the data, if business users don't trust the data, then it's not going to resonate and it's not going to really have any impact. So it seems like it's just foundational and a necessity. So.
Yeah, I think, one thing that I've observed is that data veracity or the trustworthiness of data is key for anybody to even use it. And so if they don't, the whole value goes out the window. One thing that I think we have to communicate and teach the community is it's not the data organization necessarily that can fix the data quality problem. Every time we find something, we always have to go upstream. So bringing in the data mindset very early on in the development process, upstream in the applications where the things are built, to ask, what are you planning to do with this? How are you going to use this data? How do you want to visualize it? How do you want to report on it? So bringing in that mindset early on in the development process will help the data quality at the end, and understanding how it flows downstream and what the implications are if you change things upstream.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I think these guys have touched upon it as well. Well, one of the challenges that I've seen in the organizations that I've been with is data governance becomes a resource constraint. Okay, you've only got so many data engineers, you've only got so many data stewards, you've only got so many people dedicated to your data effort. And so, are you going to go ahead and use them to create, a new project for a business sponsor, right, to be able to deliver value back to the organization? Or are they going to be focused around, continual data quality associated with a data governance process? And so, again, you kind of have to play it off. I think both are very, very important. The challenge is, where are you going to make your money? Where are you going to get your next dollar for investment? It's going to come from the business. And so now you've got to play off, how do I keep my data quality high so that people do trust it through a data governance process, but at the same time have the resources available for new projects that the business is spawning. So it becomes a resource constraint issue, and you really have to weigh out, where are the benefits on each side of this, where you're going to get your essentially next dollar for investment, and then how are you going to maintain your data factory, once it's up and running. So the challenges are always going to come back to people and how much can they handle, as far as being able to maintain these environments as they become more and more mature.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. And like one of the things that we believe in is that it really does require like a partnership with the business. In many ways, it's their data. It's not really the data of the engineers that are running the pipes necessarily. So just a partnership, this notion of data stewardship and partnering together to ensure our data quality is at the level that everyone trusts it, and thus we can activate that data confidently to help drive business value. But yeah, I totally agree. I think we need to bring folks along and partner with them so that we collectively understand we're all trying to help each other. So.
Okay, we're going to go to the Q&A. There's been a bunch of questions in the Q&A box, and I'm going to read them one by one. Hopefully get to all of them. And for the panelists, please feel free to weigh in. The first question is, how are you articulating business value of your data management initiatives? I think here is kind of, what does business value mean? Or if you have a customer experience improvement, does that mean you're doing a better cross-sell, better retention, things like that? If you can be a little bit specific on articulating business value of your data management initiatives.
Go ahead, York.
Okay. York or Lewis, you're gonna go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So I'm very passionate about that because I think that's key in everything we do. If we spend time and can't quantify the business value, it's pretty much wasted time. So there are a couple ways you need to think about it. One is, if you want to show value, you need to know where you start, and you need to have some sort of measurement criteria. So, even if you don't have a target, you at least need to have a baseline, and you need to be able to measure the trend or the progress you make. In some areas, it's very easy, right? You can translate it into dollars. Are we adding our initiatives adding to growth? How much more policies are we selling? How much more policies in force are we creating? How much more customers are we helping gain? Those are easy things to measure. Then there's also cost avoidance, which I think is key because that helps us reinvest. So for example, do we optimize the third-party data we use? Can we leverage that and get more out of it and pay less? So maybe not a direct implication to growth, but it is cost avoidance. And then there are other, measurement criteria or KPIs or whatever you want to call them that help us identify, are we moving in the right direction and how does that translate into quantifiable business value? So just an example, if we don't cause any severities all year long, I have helped to keep the customer or the agent online. That means there was less time where a customer couldn't quote or couldn't bind a policy. So severities in the technical space, downtime, time to restore, those are all things that you can translate into business value. And in the end, you just need to make sure that you're focusing on the business value that creates the most impact to your strategy.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what York started out with there is the lift associated with doing something with quality data versus doing something with data that maybe has not gone through your cleansing steps. Huge difference. And also, with augmentation of maybe third-party data or additional data sources, again, you can see through your modeling capabilities, the difference of not doing anything versus adding those additional data elements and those cleansed data elements. So the lift associated with having the additional data elements versus not, I think that's a big area or a fairly easy area to register the value increase. The other one that I think is a real easy one is just time to data, right? So when I first got to this organization, it could potentially take upwards of over a year to put together a good data set for the modeling organization to be able to do their efforts around pricing and risk aggregation. But what we've been able to see now is that essentially we've built a factory where the data is being refreshed on a monthly or daily basis. And so now, the access to good data immediately versus that year that it used to take, again, there's definitely values associated with that. And we can see that time to market is definitely has benefits for the organization.
And Don?
Sure. Yeah, it's so much of what York and Lewis totally agree with. Maybe I'll just summarize it as like the three things that I generally think about are incremental revenue, operational efficiency, and mitigating risk. And so oftentimes with respect to data governance and as you're doing privacy controls and things of that nature, there's a risk mitigation that's involved. That's always an interesting exercise in trying to quantify that with our business partners, but it's something that we're trying to lean into a little bit more. Other than that, I think the first two are relatively straightforward, but and probably the first things that you would think about, again, incremental revenue and operational efficiency.
Yeah, Don, I really like that point because that's something I always struggle with is, we have a great relationship with our legal department, but when they say there's a risk, right, I always ask them to quantify the risk so I can compare it with the investments. And that sometimes is just unlimited because you don't know what the legal risk is if you get a class action lawsuit or anything that can go into, astronomical numbers. So that's the only part where sometimes it's not worth doing the detailed business case because the risk is the risk and it's hard to quantify and you just want to make sure that you invest accordingly. But in the other areas, it's a lot easier.
One of the Q&As is about Customer 360 and ability to integrate and match data. And how important is Customer 360 to risk management, not just the typical cross-sell, upsell, incremental revenue, but risk management, understanding that risk through all the customer touch points. And just know we have a little bit under 5 minutes and we'll have one more question after this one.
Well, I'll just touch base on a real world scenario where, we had a issue where a customer we had for a number of years They made a claim. It was a very large claim. And so when we went to get to renew their policy, we essentially said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and part ways. The next thing you know, that same customer came through on a treaty with a different carrier. And had we not had the insight to be able to match, hey, that's the same customer we saw with a different carrier, they spelled their name a little bit differently, but we were able to, because of their locations, we were able to lock down and be able to find that, hey, it's the same. And so let's go ahead and make a appropriate change to the policy, or even have a conversation with the broker associated with that. But the challenge is again, in the reinsurance space, because we deal with hundreds of carriers across the country, we have the opportunity of seeing people come through different doors with different hats on all the time. And so we want to make sure that we understand who's who, and that customer 360 is very, very valuable for us.
Don or York, you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's critically important. I think that's why we listed it, or I listed as one of our 3 pillars of our data strategy. We have millions of customers that engage with NM in so many different ways, whether it's digitally or calling into a service center. And putting myself in their shoes, and I think the expectations of customers in this more modern digital age is we just expect the brands that we engage with to understand all the ways in which we interact with them. And so similarly, we're held to that standard, right? The same standard that the Amazons of the world have established, or the Apples of the world. And so it's really critically important. And to Lewis's point, just to have a seamless customer experience, and ensure we're not mailing someone, 5 different notices because we have 5 different versions of their profile and we haven't done a good job mastering their data, like Lewis is leading the charge on, and we are as well. That's kind of the risk as well. We're giving them a really poor customer experience and client experience. So it's foundational. I think it's really important. It's a great question.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, so obviously, Don said it, and I always try to, share this thought as well. We're not being measured necessarily with our competitors in the insurance industry. We're being measured with everyday applications and providers like Amazon and Uber. The customer expects us to know who he is and how he wants to interact with us. And if we don't have that information, we're just not providing the right experience, and they'll look somewhere else. The other part, I think, when it comes to risk is there is legislation like the CCPA Act that requires us to know everything about our customer, and when they tell us they want to have something deleted or removed, we need to be able to do that. If you don't have a good 360 view, you will have a residual risk of not doing and deleting what the customer wants if that's their ask, right? So you need to know everything about your customer, and you need to connect the dots, because otherwise you might not be able to comply with the regulations either.
Awesome. One very fast question. What's the difference between a BI professional and data science, and what does that mean? That was from our chat box. We have a little less than a minute, so I'll open it up.
My quick answer is BI is typically descriptive analytics, so just accurately representing what happened in the past, where the data scientist typically wants to understand kind of like the why behind it, as well as like some prescriptive aspects, like what should we do now that we know that. So that's my one-line answer for that one.
Yeah, I would agree. The data scientist for me is not only supposed to tell me why, but come up with how to solve for things. So using the insights to actually push the business to do things that they didn't even know they should be doing.
Lewis?
Yeah, and the data scientists, they're the ones out there stretching the boundaries of what is it that's contributing to what I'm trying to understand, right? So there's the elements of understanding the background and the data underneath. The BI folks, for me anyway, they're focused around that visualization component. How do I go ahead and illustrate the outputs and make it digestible for my business partners?
Well, that's all our questions. I think we're right on time. I'll just open it up. If there's any other questions, put it in the chat box real quick. Otherwise, we will wrap this up. I don't see anything. Well, I'll say I think this is fabulous. The panel was fabulous. I think you're rock stars in your fields, and I'm glad to be part of it. So thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Chris Reed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Harbert, and thank you, York, Lewis, and Don for a fantastic session there.